do that as well. As Andy said, so, this is really also a conversation between me and Andy to keep it, a little more interesting two-way conversation, but also a conversation with everyone here and an ongoing conversation. So I know Andy and Cooperative Extension, it's very much a similar kind of model for, farm assistance that we do for business assistance. And so we're always here for you. And you can become a client of the SBDC in Rhode Island if you're in Rhode Island, or in Massachusetts or Connecticut. We work closely with them and they're great folks. So definitely, this is just the beginning of a beautiful relationship, or the continuation of such. So really just three things today. So I'm going to frame sort of business planning and thinking about business planning. There are a lot of different ways to go about business planning. But we, as Andy and I were talking about it, sort of felt like there were two particular tools that that could be helpful for you as you're thinking about your business planning for your farm, whether existing or thinking about starting a farm in the future. So that's it. We could go into many other things. This is a two-part series, so we'll do a conversation next week at the same time, Thursday at 4, and we'll talk more about financials and going into budgeting and financials more in depth. But this time, we're just keeping it fairly simple with a couple different tools to get into business planning. So this is just sort of framing what I think of in terms of business planning. As I mentioned, there are lots of different tools that you could use for business planning. For me, and when I work with businesses, and I've worked with farm businesses as well, and I think this is true for farm businesses as well, is there's some core things that business planning is about, and you don't want the process to get so clunky or feel like you have to do certain things that you don't actually do the stuff that you can do. So business planning is really just about, there are kind of three core elements of that for me, in my view, which is first doing your homework, knowing your stuff, doing your research about your market, your industry, your competitors, what are the trends, what's going on, what opportunities, what challenges, doing your research, knowing your stuff that way. But really, you shouldn't get so caught up in that part of the business planning that you don't do the part that's about getting focus. And focus, I don't know who came up with this. Someone shared this with me at one point and I liked it, so I stole it. So focus, I think of as an acronym, your financial, operational, customer focused, and us or team elements. So you want to get focus on what it is that you're doing and what you're not doing, right? What's working, what's not working, what do you want to improve? So that's a key piece of business planning. And then the third piece is guiding action. So it's not any good if you write a long business plan and then do nothing with it. So the tools that we're using today are really pretty straightforward. They're a page each, and they should give you some good ways of thinking about your business as you're doing your business planning. So a couple notes on those tools, and Andy and I have gone back and forth on some of this too. So the business planning tools, they're tools, and as with any tool in farming or business planning or whatever else, it's only as good as it is useful. And if it doesn't work the way you want it to work, you might do some adapting of it. And if it still doesn't work the way you want it to work, you might forget certain, let go of certain pieces of it. So use this as much as it's useful, adapt it as much as you need. If you find adaptations that work for you, I'm always curious to hear how other people use these tools, and especially in this space. As I mentioned, I've worked with a decent number of farmers. But yeah, I've tried to translate some of this to your context specifically. But don't feel tied to the tool. The tool is for you to use, not for you to be used by it. So and the other big one that Andy and I have gone back and forth on Andy is a big lover of jargon, business jargon, not so much. So you probably, are in farming because you never want to hear anyone talk to you about synergies and whatever else. So I'll try and ditch any jargon. If we do use jargon, I think it's only useful if we can explain it and if it's a useful tool again. So that's how it just set out framing our conversation today. And then I'll move into the tools. We'll go right into it. So the first one is called the business model canvas. Some of you may be familiar with this, some not. That's okay. We're going to do it as though you have no experience with it. So as I mentioned, the business model canvas itself is a one-page visual tool. So I'll show that in just a minute. But first, again, what's a business model? So a business model is the way a business creates, delivers, and captures value. But as I mentioned, that sounds jargony. And sometimes people say in the business world, what's your business model? This and that about your business model. Sounds jargony. They don't always define it. I want to sort of bring this down from the conceptual clouds. Without the jargon, it's really about three core components of your business, right? How you do your business. So what is your production and operations? What's the model that you use for producing and operating your business? What's your sales and marketing focus? And what's your financial model? So, and when I say model, there are different choices and we'll talk more about what those choices kind of look like. So it's creating value, your production side of things, your operations. As you know, cooperative extension really focuses in a lot on production related questions. They have a real expertise and technical assistance on that. The SBDC, it's a great partnership because the SBDC is sort of meant to be the technical assistance on the other parts, the sales and marketing, how you deliver your value, and your financial model, how you capture your value. So remember that acronym: focus, financial, operational, customer, and team, us. So this is the business model canvas. We're going to send this out to you afterwards, and you'll be able to come back to the recording and use this as much as it's useful. It's 9 elements. It's 1 page. It isn't in and of itself a business plan, but it guides your business planning in a good way, helps you conceptualize, helps you think about the different elements of your business. So rather than throw 9 elements all at once, I think it's easier to break it down into 3 parts. And it's the 3 parts that we talked about, right? So it's your sales and marketing, your production and operations, and your financials. So these are kind of the core pieces to think about with your business. So let's go into your sales and marketing piece of your business model and in your business planning, thinking about, a well run business has each of these elements, has the 3 elements are working well together. I don't know, Andy, if you would say your experience of folks, farm businesses, how the balance between these different elements, what have you seen?
Well, I think that if this was to be put into a diagram that was truly proportional, the production and operations rectangle would cover like 98% of this page. That doesn't mean that people don't spend some time on sales and marketing and financials, but the sheer labor and the pulling off a farm season, especially the sorts of farmers that we are often working with, which small scale, very diverse, multi-crop, growing 9-10 months a year, very often. It consumes most of what you do, which is why it's so important to just, before things get crazy, let's just think a little bit about sales and marketing and financials. So
right, that's a great insight. I mean, I think that's true in I think it's true in farm business as much as it is in other business, that a really well oiled, well established sustainable kind of business operation, you have to think about the three-legged stool and which of the legs are strongest, and spending some time and energy thinking about sales and marketing, about your financials as well is important to balance your operations. And it may be that you have strengths in one area or another, or two of the three areas, and that's fine. Then you have to think about who is it on my team or in my network, of service providers for me who help me strengthen that other area that I'm not as strong in. So you need to be, as a business owner, you need to be kind of knowledgeable generally of these areas, but more important, is making sure that you have the team, the us, that make sure that you're strong in all of these areas. So breaking into the first area on sales and marketing. So again, sales and marketing sometimes in business jargon gets very slick and has lots of jargony language and feels inauthentic and is not necessarily why you got into business in the way that you did. But I break down sales and marketing activities really in terms of understanding who your customer is, what they want, when they want it, how they want it, and what sort of relationship you're building and why they want it, right? So that it's those core kinds of things, and marketing activities and sales activities follow from that kind of strategy of understanding who that customer is and what they want, how they want it, when they want it, why they want it. So that's what this sort of section of your business planning and thinking about your business and the business model canvas is about. So I don't know about you, I'm gonna have to move around the videos of you all. So your customer segments are really mapping out who you sell to, right? And a segment could sound a little jargony, but a segment is really a different group based on a different product, service, or channel. They either want a different product or service, they want it, they want you to deliver it in a different way. They want you to, you have to do some different things to deal with the different segment, right? So you wouldn't segment out by, each restaurant that you serve, but you'd segment out by restaurants as one segment, which is a very different segment than farmers markets or CSA kind of stuff, right? Those are different segments. And again,
I'll just throw in there that if it were up to me, I'd go to the business schools and I'd say, no, not segments, sectors.
Yeah, there you go. So you could say it that way if that helps you think of it. But either way, it's about getting to a profile, getting to an understanding of who that group is and what it is that you have to do and be good at to serve that group well, right? Because I think sometimes from farm businesses that I've worked with, certainly there's, you've got the product, you're trying to figure out where you can sell it, you're trying to figure out, and this work of trying to think through, what does it take to sell into this particular type of market, is work that's worth doing and sometimes gets a little forgotten. So that piece, customer segments, is understanding who your customers are. Profiles equal, sort of the different typical users, a profile, demographically, geographically, behavior-wise, psychographically is the language they use, but what's their behavior? What do they want that's different, right? So that's one piece. We're going to talk about how to start to fill this out, but I just want to give you definitions right now. So then the question is, your channels are how and where you sell to them, how and where you sell, and how and where you market to them. And your relationships are how you have an ongoing interaction, especially outside the sales process, the direct sales process itself. And different customers, different types of customers expect different things, right? So it's different to sell to an institution than it is to sell at a farmer's market, right? Because at a farmer's market, there's a certain type of expectation of the interaction that you have with a customer. If you're selling to an institution, they may expect, sell to someone at a farmer's market, and they don't expect you to, pick up the phone, answer every email right away, to answer any questions that they may have. They're going to come to the farmers market. You're going to talk to them. You may have an ongoing relationship after that, sending out some, email blasts and things like that. But if you're selling to an institution, that's a very different type of relationship where they might expect, that you're going to be on the phone, on emails, talking about, a variety of different things that they want from you, and really it might be a longer sales process. It might be more involved, right? So that's getting to know who those customers are, where and how you sell to them, how they want to interact with you, how they expect. And the core of that is that makes it all go is why you, right? Why do they want you instead of the alternative? So this is another jargony term, but value proposition. It basically boils down to why you instead of the alternative. Why are you relevant? Why do you matter? Why are you different? How are you different from your competitors, from the alternative? What specific benefits? How do you make their work, their life, better? And again, some of those things, I think sometimes when you get focused on production and you downplay marketing, you don't think it's not just the product that you provide. The product is absolutely key, right? And it has to be, meet quality standards. It has to be, a good product. But there's other things involved in that relationship, other things involved in how you market things that may not be directly related to the product. It may be directly related to that sales relationship, that you build.
I would just add some of my own. I was a grower for 10 years in the Hudson Valley, and I actually had several different. Let's see, what are they called? Customer segments. Yes, I did CSA. I sold direct retail to people who stopped at a farm stand. I sold to restaurants, which I ended up throwing out, and I sold to retail stores.
Mhm.
And so those were the segments. But in terms of why me, I think for one thing, it was very much about the product, but it wasn't just the fact, oh, these are good tomatoes, but these are tomatoes that I packed the way I pack them, that they're up to a standard of quality that the people who I was selling to, particularly the retailers, because that was where my biggest business was, they appreciated the fact that they could take in boxes of tomatoes from me and open the lid and put them out on their stand. And they didn't have to go through them. They didn't even have to think about it. They knew that. And so that's a part of the cultivation of that customer relationship.
Right. And that's a great, insight into a piece of a value proposition that's not just the product itself, but how it's delivered, how it's packaged, the relationship that you've got going on. There's all those different elements. So to make this a little more real, we've already sort of alluded to this, but some different customer segments. These aren't exclusive, but these are most of the different customer segments that farm businesses often have, right? So we talked about farmers markets, about CSA, online through e-commerce, if you have a website, through retail markets, through restaurants, through institutional, the channels, how you reach them, right? Do you have a retail channel yourself? Are you selling farmers market, CSA, online, retail, or e-commerce online, right? Are you doing wholesale to restaurants and institutional markets? Again, different expectations in those different customer segments, for product quality, of course, but then there's all sorts of other things about product quality, right? Product quality, as Andy was saying, can touch on how it's packaged, how it's, consistency, volume, there's a whole bunch of different things that come into that. And then obviously, I mean, the other big piece, there are big agribusiness companies that spend billions of dollars on slick marketing to try to get what you have as a small farmer. They try and present it as a very sort of like down home, mom and pop, farm owner, and so you have that relationship, that personal relationship, and you stand by, your product, and that's a key piece of often the the farmers market CSA crowd in particular buys into that. You know, the restaurant crowd, the chefs might be looking for selection. They might be looking for novel and interesting things to use in their menu. They might be looking for, you know, so there's different, chefs may want to be able to talk to you about, you know, what it is that you're going to grow specifically for them as they plan out their menu for a season, right? That's a different type of a relationship. So hope you're sort of seeing that, you know, these are not always obvious things. And if you give some thought to what are the core things that are differentiating me, what are those core things that I'm doing that are helping me to stand out to those customers, and for them to say, wow, not only do they have great products, but, you know, they are responsive, they're fast with their service, you know, they deliver it in a way that is great for us. You know, it comes in a way that's packaged well for us. The price point is good for us. You know, the selection, again, all those things sort of factor into that marketing piece. And then the customer relationships, you know, Andy and I were kind of joking around, you know, I don't think anyone would expect a small farm to have a customer service helpline. You know, it would feel odd and inappropriate. But again, the difference between, you know, someone at the farmers market, the CSA, you know, who the interaction is mainly there at the farmers market or through, you know, the emails, you know, other things related to the CSA. But if you're doing restaurants and institutional sales, you may have to think about dedicated staff for dealing with those clients. Not to put someone in front of you and not to, you know, shirk responsibility or make it too corporate, but to make sure that their needs are met, right? Make sure that you're talking to them. So if a chef wants to know, you know, what do you have for selection? What kinds of interesting things can you do for me? You want to have some time. If you're spending 90% of your time on production and then, you know, you don't have the time to talk to a chef, you might need to have someone who has that time to talk to a chef or has that time to build a relationship with an institution, a school or a hospital, which they have their own very specific needs and that need to be met. So,
Although I'll just add, as you said, you know, there are these different types of customers. You know, you may devote, you know, a lot more energy to certain individuals who could actually lead to far larger amounts of, you know, revenue generation, shall we say.
that's right.
You're gonna, if you have a chef that buys, you know, $50 a week from you, you're probably not going to spend as much energy. It's natural that you wouldn't spend as much energy as the chef that's buying $500 from you every week. It's
Right.
just sort of how it happens.
Right.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't try, but you know, it also know where your revenue is coming from and where it's important to put your time into. I was also just going to mention it. It came to mind. We're talking about that sort of folksy marketing thing. I couldn't help of one of those, which was actually for real. It actually grew out of genuine folksy marketing and turned huge. And that's Orville Redenbacher popcorn. I mean, he was a popcorn farmer, and yet he put his face all over the world. You know, it's pretty amazing. And growing popcorn, it's not like growing tomatoes. It's an agronomic crop. It's a field crop. You don't handle every kernel of corn, you know, as opposed to you do handle tomatoes. You have to. So.
No, that's really interesting. I mean, so hopefully some things to think about in terms of what you're currently doing. I think the other thing to think about as you fill this out for yourself, what are those differentiators? You know, what am I doing well? What am I not doing as well? Where am I, you know, spending a lot of my time and energy? We'll talk next time about financials in more depth, but, you know, what's the return on the investment for me? I'm spending a lot of time and energy on this. Is it, you know, is it working for me? Should I be firing certain customers? You know, if it's not working, moving them towards something that works better for me. So this is sort of how you meet, you know, take your production and your product and try and make it meet the sort of need of the market. So questions and comments on that section so far from folks who are joining us. You can put questions in the chat here. So now moving to the production and operations side of the business model. So on this side of things, I won't spend as much time because as Andy said, you know, folks I know spend a lot of time thinking about this. But the things that you might take as insights are really, how does your production translate to creating that value for your customers, right? So again, sometimes it's thinking a little bit about the market first, you know, before. Sometimes it's shifting your mindset from thinking about production first, what can I grow, you know, to what's wanted, what's needed, you know, and how am I going to deliver it in a way that matches that, right? So that's your value proposition from this side of things. Key activities, this is, you know, core things of what you need to do to deliver that value to customers consistently. Key resources, what assets do you need to deliver that value to customers consistently? Again, always focused on delivering that value to customers. How does that translate? And then key partnerships, who can help you add more value, create better product, reach more and better customers, complement your offerings. There's some creative things to think about this way. You know, how am I going to reach into these different markets that I might not be in? Or how can I add more value for the customers I already have? You know, there's different creative ways to think about that, potentially partnering with another business or organization to do so.
I could also add to that, depending on what you do and how you do it, there are various sorts of certifications that could make what you produce agriculturally more desirable to certain people more than others, or certain other businesses more than others. Such as, I mean, I'll just throw this off the top of my head. I know there's a sort of a subset of organics, which is called veganics, which means that you're not using any animal products in the production of plant products. That's just, and if that is sought after, if there are people who want to buy that and are willing to pay a premium, well, you know, and you have an interest in that, well, there you go. That's one possibility.
That's a great point. I mean, that gets again to what the market is looking for, and sometimes it feels foreign or slick, you know, but like you said, there's certain types of things that certain type of customers might be looking to check off, you know. And if you look at the way that food is marketed in a lot of different places, you know, what are those catchphrases? What are those words? You know, what are those emerging trends? How can you respond to those things? Can you, or do you want to? I mean, it's something that you do in your business planning research to figure out, do I want to enter into this space? So breaking down what this is again. So we talked about value proposition and the product quality and service quality. Key activities, you know, put these three as equal. I know that Andy has highlighted that production often takes the lion's share of the effort. How do you make that three-legged stool? What are you doing in terms of marketing? You know, again, these big agricultural companies spend tons and tons of money to create these stories about, you know, that feel sort of down home, because there's a feeling that comes with that. You have that story probably, you know, as a small farmer. How are you telling that story? You know, what does your website look like? What is your, you know, the stuff that you put out there to tell that story? Are you doing any maybe video production that to let people in on that story, right? That's not to be underestimated, the value of spending some money and time on marketing. It's you want to think about what's the return on it, but there's a process, and it's a valuable process of creating a customer through telling your story and telling that value proposition. You know, how would you, in a one sentence or a few words or a few catchphrases, how do you hammer that home for your customers? Because that sometimes the way you tell the story differentiates you. You know, the product itself, I can't know that difference until I actually, buy it from you and eat it, right? Or use it but the marketing preps me for thinking about that. So how are you using those things in your story and spending time and money to do so? Not throwing money at it, but have it be part of your budget, right? And how much time are you spending on your financials and thinking about what is that return on investment for different things that I'm doing? How am I performing with certain things that I'm growing in certain markets that I'm in? We're going to talk more in depth about that next time. Key resources, it's the old economic stuff, land, labor, capital, but there's a lot of different things to think about in terms of sometimes partnerships related to those resources. So are you working with the land trust? How are you getting farm labor, capital, both in terms of money and equipment, and how are you partnering and looking for filling that need? Can you partner with farmers markets to reach a market? Can you partner with other farms? There's been some really interesting stuff in COVID times. I've seen farms, there's been a move, right, in COVID times towards, I think, a lot of people paying attention to where their food is coming from in a different way. I don't know, something about COVID sort of triggered this a little bit more. And we are seeing a rise in people looking for local food. How can you sort of take advantage of that? I've seen small farms bundle their products together in a CSA style type of a thing, or an e-commerce style type of a thing to help fill the full basket that's going to be, supplemental to what folks want, right? That's a creative way to think about your production.
I just thought I'd mention there, if you go back to that previous slide, I see capital there and partners, and certainly I don't think we should forget about the possibility. For instance, USDA can be a partner there.
Sure.
Farm Services Agency, FSA, they have loan programs, and there are farmers who've been farming for generations who get an annual operating loan from FSA. It's just an automatic.
Right.
It's just something, you get a hunk of money in the winter, and you can then buy your fertilizer, your seed, do equipment related things. And then usually you pay that back by the end of the year. It's just to make sure you're floating. And these loans, they want to work with farmers. FSA really wants to. I know in Rhode Island, they're very eager to help people, and they've helped a lot of people. So keep that in mind. Also, I know, like in Rhode Island, again, recently there has been a new program. It's taken a few years to get off the ground, but it's finally just beginning to get off the ground, where the state is actually purchasing lands from private owners who are willing sellers, that is. And then the state will then make that land available for farmers at, below regular market value. This isn't to take land away from other farms. This isn't a redistribution. It's all cash transactions. And so if somebody has some land that they're not using, they don't need to use it, they've scaled down, they try to sell it to the state, and then the state then looks for applicants who might be interested in buying it. And that applicant has to have a proposal for what they would do with that land, what their farm business plan is, and more than just a business plan, showing experience and all. But this is, again, another partner that in Rhode Island, at least, the state is trying to become a real partner for this key resource.
We have a question from Jenny here. Is it too late to apply for an FSA loan for the 2021 season?
I don't know the answer to that. All you got to do is call, I think. I don't know if you're in Rhode Island or another state, but if you're in Rhode Island, try for Cheryl at FSA. She's super helpful. They all are. And if it's too late, they're still going to want to talk to you because they want to help. So.
And a plug for your SBDC, if you're in Rhode Island, if you're in Massachusetts or Connecticut or elsewhere, the SBDCs very typically help businesses create documents that lenders need. So if you need that business plan, you need financials, whatever else, that's a very typical thing for us to help with. So I'm going to keep the questions and comments coming in the chat. In the interest of time, I'm going to kind of keep moving through the presentation and go through the financials. But these are good questions and keep them coming. And again, this is an ongoing conversation. So, you'll have our contact information. We'll get together next week and you can keep the two-way conversation or multi-way conversation going. So, so thinking about financials, again, we're going to go much more in depth next week on the budgeting and financial planning side of things. But from a business model perspective, how it is that you create, deliver, and capture value, how it is that you make money, right, is the financial piece. How do you make money? How often? How is that set up? And what are the different types of costs associated with your operations? So let me make that less theoretical and more, these are the different types of ways that you can think about what you may currently be doing or what you could be doing. So the most typical revenue stream is just fee for product, right? Somebody's paying you to buy your product in whatever quantity. There may be a fee for additional services. Sometimes that comes in the form of agritourism, right? You're seeing a decent amount of this, although COVID obviously is not really doing much for that. But in general, you do see that move towards smaller farms, using that picturesque, using that, beautiful land that you may have as an asset itself to be used not just for farm production, but for event experience, development, right? You could get revenue through shares, through a CSA. We've talked about that. There's an advantage to that you have, capital coming in at the beginning of a season when you need it, and then you have customers at the end when you produce it. So that can be a good model to use. A subscription, now that could be linked to this sort of CSA type of a model, but recurring revenue, how do you get it to come in a recurring way, and then add-ons and bundles. So a lot of times, and this is not exclusive to farm businesses, many business owners who I work with, you think about, how can I get more customers? How can I get more customers? Because that's how I'm going to grow my business, or that's how I'm going to improve my financials. I'm going to get more customers. That can be a costly and timely process, time-intensive process. And so really, another way of thinking about it is, how can I add more value and capture more value? How can I create more value for my customers that I have now, adding on different products, bundling products? Again, the thought of you can be a connector with other related products, right? How can I do that? Can I do side contracts? Andy sort of mentioned some of these things. Can I co-brand products? Can I get my products into local branded food products that sort of elevate the story of my farm, right? That's a great opportunity, in whether it be in beer or beverages or boutique whatever products.
A lot of times certain restaurants will put signs up on the wall saying, we buy it where all our chickens come from such and such farm.
That's right.
Problem is that sometimes those are old signs.
That's true. Yeah. So, but it's an important thing, telling that story and different, having, if you're doing restaurants or institutions, how can they tell that story as well of supporting the local economy and connecting to local farms. And then on the other side, the cost structure side, again, you go more in depth next time in terms of the actual numbers, but this is the business model piece of it. What are the costs associated with your farming and associated with the different elements of what you're doing with regard to land, labor, capital? Also, are you renting or leasing, or are you buying? There's some trade-offs there. Is it one-time costs or recurring costs? Are there costs associated with the development of the product itself, cost of goods sold, or what is your overhead expense? We're going to talk again in more depth about this next time around. But that's the financial piece of mapping out your current business model, opportunities for improvement, where you want to potentially make changes to your business model. So before I go on to the key takeaways, questions on these three big areas of the business model canvas. Chris asked, does anyone have a percentage that they spend on marketing? I don't know if anyone wants to share, a percentage that they use. We can actually find that out. You know what? If you come back next time, I will show you industry financials and show you an average that farm businesses spend on marketing.
I would also add that so many farm businesses, small farm businesses these days, are using social media.
Right.
And depending on the extent that you're using social media, a lot of it is free.
Right.
Your time is worth something, but yeah.
So I will say also that we have plug for the SBDC here as well. Elena and our team have created a lot of marketing webinars as well. 1 hour, a lot of really good content there, a lot of really good tips, very hands-on. So definitely take advantage of those. We'll send you, the links on our website to look at those. So
do you want to take another question? This is rather general about the whole business planning, but
yeah.
Alex is asking, how would you recommend organizing a business plan if each season's activities vary so much? Separate plans for each season, or bundle the similar activities together, or what?
So it depends. I mean, it sort of depends on the business itself, but I think that I think you probably want to divide out your plan a bit by the different activities that you're doing. If you think about this business model canvas as a way of conceptualizing it, you could do it based on the different markets that you're going to sell into, right? So that's one way of thinking about your business planning, and then follow through, each of these different areas of the business model canvas, thinking about, what am I doing, planning for my production for these different markets, right?
So Josh, what would the sort of similarity or dissimilarity have bearing on it? I mean, let's say, what if you're growing produce all summer and in the winter you've got a wood business?
Sure.
You cut and deliver wood, or you plow snow.
Absolutely. That's clearly two very different sort of lines of business, and probably need to be separated out in your planning. And as we go next week into financial analysis, that you'll separate that out as well, likely, if you can. You want to put yourself in a position to do that. We're getting a bunch of questions here, so these are great questions. Oh, great. Elena shared a couple of links for the upcoming webinars and recorded webinars, so you can see those in the chat as well. Don says, any guidance towards streamlining marketing logos for bags and tags for visual appeal when selling? Streamlining marketing logos. So I think what you mean is well, maybe I don't know what you mean. So Don, if you want to either a good place to get them. So can look around to local graphic designers, through the chambers or through us. We can point you in that direction sometimes. There are some services out there that can be good as well. There's one called 99 Designs, and another one called Fiverr with 2 R's on the end. These are freelance graphic design and marketing professionals who make themselves available through those services. So
there's probably also online, there are probably a lot of services where you can print this on anything, like
sure, yeah,
on a hat or on a bag or whatever. I have a feeling there are a lot of such things. And Mariana has just chimed in saying, I use Canva, Canva. And I'm not sure if that's an online service or.
It is. Yeah, I'm familiar with Canva. So Canva, so that's like if if you're doing DIY things for your marketing, for any logos, for any visuals that you're doing on your marketing, Canva it's a nice tool. It's a good tool, and it's fairly user friendly for creating that kind of stuff. I don't know, you might create a logo yourself. You might want to spend a little bit of money on that. I'm going to put in the chat the 99 Designs and Fiverr are the two that I mentioned for those services. We're getting more questions here.
Really good one here about Schedule F, IRS Schedule F. You probably would defer to more of an accountant type person.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk next week a little bit about that more. We don't right now, but it's something that we could develop if there's a strong interest in it. How do you include the cost? Candace says, how do you include the cost of the land you own in your cost analysis? Your cost analysis of products, not the monthly cost of owning the land, but the actual investment or the worth of this land. That's a good question. Why don't we, I hope you'll come and join us next week. We'll record that one as well. But let's dig into that next week when we dig into the financials more. So I'll make a note of that question in particular. Darren is saying, Cheryl replied, loans are always available. So it sounds like FSA is a great resource. They've been a great resource for our farm clients. And I know Andy said as much as well too. So let's keep moving. So key takeaways. I know we're coming up on time here, and I've talked too much and just enjoy talking with you all and with Andy too much. So if you'll give us a little bit more time, make it worth your while. So so the key takeaways that I would say from this, using this business model canvas as a foundation for your business planning, is you have a choice to make in each of the areas of your business model. Which markets will you focus on? What products will you focus on? What sort of revenue streams will you try to build into your model, right? And those choices have impacts on every other aspect of your business. So how are you going to manage? Again, we talked about this a little bit. If you go into institutional markets, if you're selling to restaurants, it's a different expectation in terms of the relationship that you build there and the work that you have to do to maintain those relationships, and the work that you have to do to deliver a certain type of, it's not a tomato is tomato, not exactly, right? Not only if you're doing something more boutique, but also all the things that Andy was talking about. How's it packaged? How's it delivered? How often? How much? Those are all important questions, and again, have impacts on every other part of your business model. Sustained success means doing well in all of the different areas of production, marketing, and financial management. So where's your focus? Where's your energy been? You know, how can you improve a little bit? Continuous improvement, incremental. How can I get a little better at each of these areas? What am I going to do? I think that's, business planning can get overwhelming. How do I get focused and just say, how can I do a bit better? Or how can I stop doing something that's not working so well and make some progress? That's really how I think of this process of business planning. And then last, you can use this as a tool, as I mentioned, to map your current business model and strengths, weaknesses, you know, challenges, things that are going well, but also to think about how you can improve your business. How can I, you know, do I want to branch into a different market? Do I want to add different products that are complementary? Do I want to look into value-added products? Do I want to do some of the value-added products? There's, you know, grants I know available, the value-added producer grant. You know, there's other ways of thinking about what you could do that way. So those are some key takeaways from using this tool. So again, remembering these sort of three big components and getting focus in these areas. It's about the desirability, the feasibility, and the viability of your business. So if I don't have a customer, I don't have a business. No one wants what I produce, I don't have a business. But I also have to be able to produce what they want, right? So I have to balance that. And then I have to be able to make money doing it. So that's really what this tool is designed to get you thinking about. Going to do a very quick kind of introduction, because I know we're basically at time here, to this one-page business planning tool. And these two things I think you can use side by side. I'm not a big fan of very long, 50-page business plans that you don't ever look at again. That's why I chose these two tools that are really one page each and can get you thinking about the right things, can get you, getting focus on the right things. So taking that business model canvas, mapping that out, and then framing it, using it to frame this one-page business plan. So this came from Farm Credit East. I always believe, life's an open book test, so cheat off the smart kids if they've already done the work. So, so Farm Credit East has this one-page business plan. As I mentioned, we'll send these slides, we'll send the business model canvas blank, template for you, and this template for you as well. So this is really getting down to, what's your core mission? What's the core of what you're doing? Where do I not want to stray from? If I could change in lots of different ways, what do I not want to stray from? What's the core that needs to stay the same, that keeps me anchored, keeps my business anchored? That should inform everything that you do, right? It guides everything that you do. And then I'm going to look and think through what are my goals, my objectives, and general directions in each of those areas. So I think about this, it doesn't have to be this way, but you could choose one objective in each of the areas of focus, right? Financial, operational, production, customer and market, sales, and team, right? And then you build out what are the SMART goals, maybe familiar with SMART goals, right? Make sure that my goals are specific, measurable, attainable, rewarding, and timely, right? That they have a time associated with it. And what am I going to do to achieve those goals? And really, again, the one-page business plan and one-page business model are good because now I can take that visual, I can put it up somewhere where I see it regularly and remind myself, what is it that I should be doing? What am I doing today? What am I doing this week? What am I doing this month to get towards those goals? So this tool will send to you, the business model canvas will send to you, and the slides will send to you as well. So again, sort of bringing it all back around, business planning is about doing that homework, doing your research, understanding, your business and your market and your competition. And it's about getting that focus. So the point of doing sort of shorter, smaller tools, the one-page tools, is not to get you overwhelmed with 50-page business plans you'll never look at, but the one page, let's get clear on what it is that I need to do to improve my business incrementally, or maybe in a big way. And then how can I guide the actions that I'm going to take over the next year to make that happen? And again, coming back to that note on tools, use these tools. Hopefully they're useful for you. I know, I'll mention again, this is two-way conversation, ongoing conversation. The SBDC here in Rhode Island, if you're here in Rhode Island, is a resource for you in your business planning process. Digging into this, you want to do it, have questions for your business specifically. SBDCs in wherever you are in the country, Connecticut, Massachusetts, wherever else, are also set up to do that for free and to do that confidentially. So questions or comments? I know I whizzed through the end of that on the one-page business plan, but questions or comments on anything that we talked about today?